noticed Daniel's talent probably in his first year or two. He was a really sharp little boy. So he was really interested in animals, and he was interested in dinosaurs and in history, and was always drawing, and it just became more and more sophisticated. Daniel was a deep-thinking kid and really empathetic, and we noticed that he would fixate on things and get somewhat depressed about things he might read and dwell on them in a dark sort of way pretty early on. He got into boxing at 16 and started to exhibit some behaviors that were really of concern, which were sort of obsessive behaviors, obsessions around weight and controlling his weight. And we got him some help pretty early on in his adolescence so that he could talk about those sort of things. And it was in some ways a phase that changed, and he ended up going to college and came back to Minnesota, where he went to Minneapolis College of Art and Design. That was really exciting, but I think it started to unravel fairly shortly after he got here. Mood changes, ended up having what I would call his first psychotic episode that was precipitated by using hallucinogenic drugs. I've never had any hesitation to talk to my son about things that concerned me. And sometimes I talk to parents who ask, well, when, should I just be careful and should I not bring it up, and they're just going to get mad at me. And I always think, children's responses tend to be kind of defensive and I know best. But all you can do as a parent, especially in the teen years, is just be really encouraging about, what the possibilities of getting help are going to be. And I think there were various times where he was willing to participate, got a lot out of it, repeated meetings, was given medications that seemed to work for certain periods of time. And then it became more difficult to kind of persuade him to do that. And I think he just became kind of exhausted. There was a closeness between mother and son, and Daniel wanted the safety as his mental illness was amping up. That felt like a safe place to go. She agreed to allow him to come home. He ended up going to Skidmore, where she teaches. But very quickly, his mother became absolutely exhausted by what I would say was his intransigence. And his mother and I would tell him, your unwillingness to participate in any therapy, to watch you be hopeless is like a death for us. We didn't do it to guilt him or shame him, but I think it's really important that he understood, and I think he did. Yeah, we spent a lot of time on the phone, so he told me the dark thoughts that he had. He told me he didn't want to be here anymore. It's brutally painful not being able to embrace your child and hold them and protect them from pain, any kind of pain. It's a parent's worst nightmare. So I lived that daily. At one point I said to him, can you just imagine what it's like to be somebody that was diagnosed with cancer and overcoming what could have been a terminal illness, or people that went through concentration camps that managed to keep their spirits up through the worst imaginable conditions of human experience. And he said to me, I think the only difference between people you're talking about and me is that those people wanted to live. To him, it seemed as though it was a journey that was never going to end. I spent a few months knowing that I was going to get the phone call. And every time his mom called, I worried that it was that call. And I did get that call from his mom. You never imagine that you're going to put a child in a grave as a parent. It may cross your mind in your worst fears, but most of us don't allow ourselves to think that that's really going to happen. You know, it feels as fresh in some ways as it did when it happened a year and a half ago. I'm still triggered by the sound of skateboards on the street. I think of him. I smell certain scents and they remind me of him. Talking to them about what Daniel went through is not difficult. They saw the agony, they're well acquainted with his art, and they saw the content of that art. And there were moments where they would cry when they were around him. It was just so overwhelming. It was so visceral, the pain that he was in. We also talk about all of the wonderful and funny and touching things that he did for them and his really amazing love for his sisters.
Midtown Greenway, you can ride your bike or walk, it's a freeway.
Memory is something that doesn't die. We've worked really hard to get the girls to understand that while Daniel's no longer with us, we have all of these great contributions to who we are as a result of who he was. I think the thing that's helped me get through this, even when I've felt hopeless, the thing that keeps coming back to me is being able to talk about Daniel's experiences and my own and my family's. Talking about Daniel's experience helps me, and knowing that the information that I share with other people helps them at some level makes me feel that there's hope. What are you going to do if you have a friend later in your life who seems to be struggling? Do you think you're going to have a way to talk to folks like that, or?
Well, I know a lot of ways that you used to try to calm Daniel down, so I feel like maybe I'll have some techniques and stuff from you to help them and try to just help them through it.
For people going through rough times like Daniel was, is just that you're not, usually you can't make a difference on how they're feeling all the time, but it's important to just be there and have them know that you care about them and that you love them and that you're there for them and will listen. So it's important that Dad is sharing what it's like to be a parent in that situation, to give other parents an idea that they're not alone and there's other people dealing with these things. It's okay to talk about it and share what you're going through and be there for each other.
Speak our minds without fear. We'll share all things we hold dear someday.
A lot of the things that we're talking about, we don't talk about as a society at large. Dissonance was important for me because I know a lot of students who struggle with mental illness. To bring in artists that were well known and just to ask them, how do you manage to get over this or function with these sorts of struggles?
Late December, cold.
Can you tell the difference between normal stress and maybe more intense problems or issues that you're struggling with?
Addiction and mental illness, it's a brain disease.
This song is a lot about seeing each other struggle and not doing anything about it.
I have a confession to make to everybody in this room right now. I've been dealing with chronic depression and anxiety for the past 9 years. And sometimes I just feel like I can't find a solid path to go on. And I just was wondering if any of you have ever had that problem, and how have you dealt with that?
Thank you for your bravery. I'd like it if you answer this question to this gentleman here with maybe a sort of edge of what did you do when, or what do you do when you feel that hopelessness, that kind of abyss.
Standing up and saying something is a great way of doing it. Saying something, you know, whether you're saying it to somebody next to you or going to a counselor and saying it in a, you know, feeling okay saying it. That's the thing that we're kind of up here talking about, is we all need to be okay knowing that people struggle with it.
And be sure to remember that your struggles don't define you. And even it's good to talk about it. And I'm glad that you had the courage to say something, but also know that these people in the room now, they're not going to define you by those terms. That's something you're struggling with, but it's not who you are. Remember that.
Remember, there are full-time counselors on campus. If you're having issues, you don't want to share them today with us, but you want to get to somebody that's out there. I thought they did a great job and played music that expressed some of that struggle.
For the first time in a long time, I can say